Hello, Jennifer. Fantastic to chat with you again.
You too, Robin, and I'm very interested to talk about your adventures on the weekend, but we can talk about that a little bit later. But please send me a playlist.
Oh, absolutely, I will. Best concert ever, for sure.
Right.
But I want to talk about Haroun Bouazzi. So he issued something of a mea culpa over his comments about racism in the National Assembly. Now, he said he experiences racism in the National Assembly every single day, and he singled a few people out. Now, he's since backtracked on that, but I found Francois Legault's comments after the fact something somewhat interesting, I guess. I think it's difficult for me to hear a white man tell a person of color whether or not they've experienced racism. Am I getting a weird read on this, or does that feel a little icky?
No, I don't think you're wrong at all. And the problem, there are many problems with this situation on a number of levels. One of them is how long it took Quebec Solidaire to be able to get their stuff together to figure this out, because it's a party that it's led by committee, essentially. So, they had a convention this weekend. I don't think it was called particularly to deal with this issue. This issue came from statements that were made earlier this month at a Fondation Club Avenir event where Mr. Bouazzi was giving a speech, and he said what you alluded to. The thing is that I think everybody should recall is when we go back how François Legault has a very good way of twisting words and making something about something that it isn't, right? So if we look back a few years to the institutional racism, do we have a problem with institutional racism in Quebec? François Legault quickly found a way to make it that Quebecers aren't racist. Well, nobody was ever saying that Quebecers were racist. It was, do we have an institutional racism problem? But it had a chilling effect in a way to shut the conversation down. And it's sort of doing the same thing here, because basically Quebec Solidaire, they had a special caucus this morning where they organized it. The two spokespeople came out and sort of rapped, Mr. Bouazzi on the knuckles, and, they came out with a statement. He didn't make the situation any better for himself by piling on last week and actually trying to make it better for himself by singling out Ministers Dubé and Carman. So, the situation couldn't get any worse, I don't think, if they tried. And Québécois is having a field day with it. I don't even know how many articles they had published on this today.
Well, that's like their favorite topic, right? Quebecers are not racist. But I mean,
Exactly.
I feel like maybe he exaggerated a little bit, saying I experience racism every day at the National Assembly. I kind of liken it to, like I've said before, if I experience sexism in the workplace, I don't mean that everyone I've ever worked with was sexist, but have I experienced it? Absolutely. And I think maybe that's just where the disconnect was.
Well, I think there's that. You're absolutely correct. And the fact of the audience, so the Fondation Club Avenir is the audience is newcomers. So it's sort of a way of almost frightening newcomers. It's like, well, you're welcome here, but, basically our legislature is sort of racist. So good luck with it. Yeah, it probably might have come across better to a crowd of the Souche than the crowd that it came across to. I just don't see any win out of this for anybody, even though he may in fact be correct. I mean, certainly we can all go to statements that have been made by CAC ministers, even the former Minister of Immigration, saying that, they all come to Montreal, they don't speak English, they don't speak French, and all of this stuff. I mean, and he was demoted for his trouble, but, any blank generalization statement is taken very badly in the National Assembly corridors, I can assure you.
Absolutely. This is a crazy story. When I saw this today, I saw the group that is suing the city over non-consultation on bike lanes. This kind of just feels like moving in the wrong direction. Now, I do have a car and I drive, and I consider difficulty finding parking my penance. That is the punishment that I have to pay for driving a car and polluting the environment. But I know a lot of people don't see it that way. They get very frustrated by bike lanes, and now they're suing the city. This doesn't necessarily seem like the right use of time. What do you think?
Well, it's sort of interesting because there are lots of different groups that are popping up. Now, I make a habit of paying attention to City Hall question period every month, and I saw the spokesperson asking a question last night, and apparently there was about 30 people outside of City Hall last night, and they've hired a law firm. So this is born out of the situation that your listeners may recall, because I know that CJAD was on this last year, when they decided the borough administration, so basically this group, they're called the Connexion Québec Montréal, or Coalition Democratic Montreal, because it's all in English. The lawsuits against the AGLOS, the Agglomeration Committee, the Ville de Montréal, and the borough, so the Ville Marie Saint-Michel Park Extension Borough, which decided last year that they were going to remove parking on both sides of Calb Street and put bike lanes on both streets. And this outraged people who live there because basically there was no parking left on the street. So it was a little bit of an exaggeration, I think, on the part of the borough, and people were really unhappy. So clearly they've gotten themselves together, but this type of problem is happening all over Montreal. I don't think that you're on the wrong side of history, Robin, at all, but the problem in Montreal, I can even say for where I am, I'm in Côte-des-Neiges, very close to the University of Montreal campus, and on DeSalle, for example, there's bike lanes on two sides of the road. Only one bike lane gets used, but it blocks up traffic for miles. Like there's actually rush hour traffic on DeSalle in the afternoon, if you can believe it. And it's simply because of the bike lane, because somebody can't turn left and there's only one lane of traffic. So this is happening in a lot of places. This is happening on Bellechasse. This is happening. I've been contacted by numerous people about the St. Monica's Church situation, where they are starting some sort of action because of a bike lane that's being implemented. The problem is non-consultation. I think that if the city spoke to residents and merchants, they would maybe have a little bit less of this. But I don't necessarily blame this organization for taking this route, because how the city responded is basically, oh yes, it's sort of very patting you on the head. We know it's difficult to make changes, kind of suck it up. But I've seen the types of these meetings, these public information meetings, and what they'll give you is you're getting a bike lane either way. It's just which version of the bike lane do you want. It's not having a bike lane is not part of the option in this. So I think that basically this is a way maybe to show Projet Montréal that they can't just be putting bike lanes willy-nilly all over the place. Nobody's against bike lanes. I think what people are very much against is non-consultation about bike lanes, and bike lanes that we see all over the place that aren't in use and that are seriously impeding traffic. I know a lot of Montrealers were getting a little bit of province envy maybe a couple of weeks ago when Rob Ford said he was going to pull up bike lanes in Toronto and other Ontario municipalities, because a lot of Quebecers are going, hey, that would be a good move for the CAQ. You might even get some votes in Montreal,
I guess I just never think it's a great use of time to sue the city for anything, because you're essentially suing yourself, right? It's public funds. To me, the best way to show your disdain for choices that an organization, that an administration is making, is by voting them out. Projet Montréal, this isn't their first term. This isn't their first mandate. They were re-voted into office. So obviously there's people who do support the idea of having more bike lanes, and those people outnumbered the people who didn't. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
Well, it is, and I think the problem that a lot of Montrealers have with Projet Montréal is that when, full disclosure, I led the public outcry over Camellia Hood in 2018. We were left with no choice, and we forced the biggest public consultation in Montreal history. They went along with it, and they said they were going to respect the wishes of the public consultation, the OCPM outcome, which was to maintain traffic on Camellia Hood. And then, only after they had been reelected. So they were reelected in 2021. In 2023, they came along and said that they were going to go along with the idea to close it and invest $90 million in trees on Mount Royal. Now, I live in close proximity to Mount Royal. We're not lacking trees on the mountain, I can assure you.
Yeah, that's
stuff like that. I think, Robin, that gets people. The lack of consultation. We're presenting you with a fait accompli, and it does irritate Montrealers from all walks of life, in all boroughs, all over the place. And I don't necessarily agree with the legal approach. But I mean, if you look at the players involved in this, it's sort of the same players who are involved in other lawsuits elsewhere. So it's maybe a little bit of more of the same, and just a bit of joining forces from what I can gather about the people that are involved in this organization.
Jennifer Crane is founder of Connexion Québec Public Affairs and political strategist. Thanks so much for your time today. Appreciate it.
Bye, Robin.